So
Sure,
that
sir.
will more animated, more energetic, charged face, which indicates that you are into it. Now, for example, you are smiling. So that kind of
Yes,
a
sir.
pleasant disposition while making the present, that will do good to your performance. And it was otherwise a well prepared text on your part, except for that what Sabiha later on explained, the historical context of this statement, the structure follows the strategy. That perhaps you needed to add, because that was an important part.
Okay,
And
sir.
there was a learning from that detailed research of business organization. And in fact, it is considered to be one of the path-breaking research, because for the first time, detailed case study method based on historical data was used by Alfred Chandler. So in a way, he is the first business historian. So that is why this study is important and remarkable. And I also gave you the example why the converse may happen. And I quoted the example of civil engineering department of a university. So once we create a structure, it has its own inertia
Yeah.
and uh, reason for continuing it, because it has been created because of some historical reason. So when that doesn't happen, the organization becomes a bit, rigid and not flexible enough to change as per the demands of the situation. And I referred to many other new emerging streams of engineering, which we have not been able to start, and yet there is a need for them. Isn't it? So that was one of the point which was missed by Arham as also Sabiha.
Okay, sir.
Overall, Sabiha, you did a very good job, and you have got a resonating voice. That's
Thank you,
a
sir.
very important strength that you have. So when you speak, you are able to speak very loud and clear. And हम हिंदुस्तानी में कहते हैं कि एक खनक है आवाज में आप. So that is something which is your important strength.
Thank you, sir.
Except for that, content was also very good, but there were some language slips here and there on the slides.
Yes, yes, sir.
Just check, for example, land and gardens.
Yeah, take care. Thank you.
So otherwise, it was a good performance. Well done. So Zareen ma'am, we can start with the next topic, power and authority.
Ji, sir.
Hmm.
Thank you, sir. So, like we have discussed structure, now the topic for today is power and authority. And it is again linked with our previous topic, structure, because as we know that structure is only a framework and it does not run by itself. Structure is operated by rules. All the functions in the structure happens according to rules which are set up in the organizations, and managers set and apply rules. And how can they set and apply rules? Because they have authority to set rules, to apply rules. They have also the power to set rules and apply rules. So we can say that if structure is the skeleton, power and authority could be considered as blood and flesh of that structure. Without power and authority, a structure cannot function. So let us discuss power first, and then we shall move on to discussing authority in detail as well. Power is some like an ability of a person to influence other person. For example, we can say that a person who might not be having authority may have power to influence others, because authority is also like power, but it is more legitimate. It has more ethical sanctification Although power could be practiced, could be enjoyed by any individual who might not be having an authority. But authority could only be with a person who has a legal sanctity or a notion of legitimacy. Now, power and organizational behavior does not have to be legitimate, like I just mentioned. And social scientists have distinguished among at least five sources of power, or we can say five bases of power. First is reward. It means that a person has power over another person to the extent that the manager or the person can give a reward to the other person. It can be in the form of, for example, a manager or supervisor who is happy with another employee's high performance, he could give him a incentive. So that is a reward power which the manager or the head is enjoying. And reward powers could be positive rewards such as money that the other person would get, or it could be negative reward also. For example, if a person is working in an organization working hard but still he is working in poor working conditions, then it could be a kind of a negative reward which a person is getting instead of in spite of the hard work. But that is a kind of a negative reward which he is getting in, in the form of the working condition. And positive reward could also be same in case one has good working condition, one gets maybe he's working hard, so he's getting a laptop or printer, or maybe in the form of monetary reward he's getting. So this is how a reward power could be exercised by an individual on other individual. The second form of reward or the basis of power is coercive power. As the name suggests, the coercive power is when one individual is it is also a form of a formal power source, where influencing other person is done through threat or threat of force to gain compliance from targets of influence. For example, they kind of threat a person, force a person to do, and they use their power in that way, where a coercive nature of power is prevailing. Many times, when there's a group, people are working in a group, there is also a kind of one coercive power which could be exercised by one group member or another group member. And it may lead to rejection also, it may lead to physical violence also. But unfortunately, many bosses, they depend on the coercive power, because that is how they sometimes think the employees would work through threats or intimidation, and that is how they practice. And many a times it is also the nature of the bosses to do that, and to exercise coercive power and take benefit of their position that they are enjoying. Third basis of power is legitimate power or positional power. Um, as the name suggests, legitimate power, positional power, it could overlap the previous ones, because in that case also the manager would be enjoying legitimate power or positional power. But the main way he's exercising power is in a coercive manner or reward manner. So legitimate or positional power, it is when someone has a legitimate right to influence the other person to get the work done, and because of which the other person has an obligation to accept his influence because of the legitimate or the positional power one is enjoying. Many a times, if we see in the past, the actual source of this legitimate power might be tradition, as in the case of a monarch. in the past, as they used to practice their legitimate oppositional power, or it may also be derived from the office the any superior holds in an organization. And for example, if somebody has joined a company, has agreed to join a company, then one has to accept a task from his manager, maybe from a sales manager. A sales manager might assign his a salesperson a task, because he has the right to assign him a task, maybe to meet a particular figure, to particular target during a day or during a month. So that is how legitimate or positional power is exercised in organization, when somebody has a right to influence, a legitimate right to influence, and other person feels an obligation to fulfill that duty or that task. The fourth basis of power could be the expert power. And this expert power is also stems from a person being viewed as an expert in some area, and on whom others must, therefore, since he's expert in some area, so others must therefore depend upon him for his advice and counsel. So that is how we can say that a person is expert in his area, and we must take his advice and counseling before we get on to finalizing some work or plan. The way the organization is structured, it has a big influence on who will have expert power. For example, in any company, for example, if there's a communication department, let's say, and if there's a communication head, then we can say that, okay, in this company, the person who is holding the position of a communication head, then he has an expert power, because from that person has the ability to control the information and to disperse the information. So this is how, because of the position he is holding, we can say that he has expert power. Because of the work which he is performing, he's expert in his work. Similarly, we can talk same about, for example, about financial person, who financial gatekeepers. For example, in university, we have a finance officer who is considered as financial gatekeeper in public institutions. So whenever any file related to funds has to go, it has to go through the financial gatekeeper. So we consider him expert in his field. So that is how a person may enjoy expert power. Many a times, all teachers, all people who are working in an organization, could be teacher, could be managers, they may not be having same expert power, because of experience. In organizations, people lack experience. People have there could be difference in experience. People who are working since long, they may be having more expert power than the people who have just joined. So that is how the expert power may differ from person to person. And also, on the basis of personal expertise, the expert power may differ. In our field also, we are encouraged to read, we are encouraged to read the articles, business articles, to read news. But if we are able to do that, then we are able to develop our personal expertise, we are able to develop our expert power. And if we lack in that area, if we are not able to find time of, or we don't are very habitual of reading or watching news, for example, then we may not be able to develop that personal expertise, which gets developed with experience and with reading or with general awareness. That is how, this is an example how one may gain expert power, and why people differ on a scale of expert power. Then the fifth basis of power, the source of power, is referent power.
Ma'am,
Yes,
could you repeat that?
referent power. I can write in the chat box.
Yes, ma'am, please.
Okay, referent.
Thank you, ma'am.
You're welcome. Referent power. And there are two. This is referent power is seen in two ways. First, we can say that when people wish to refer to another person, for example, we wish to refer to another person who is holding referent power. Many times we are impressed, we are very much inspired, very much moved by another person. Maybe it could be a celebrity, it could be a friend, it could be our parents, and the person could be any our siblings, and we start following them. For example, if we like any celebrity or if we like any actor, then we sometimes tend to follow their maybe dressing style or maybe their hairstyle. So referent power, one aspect of referent power which is said, is when people wish to refer to another person whom who holds that referent power, and we tend to follow that person in some way or the other. The other way in which the referent power is explained is um, in the context of reference. For example, in an organization, we can consider that there are important power centers. In university, you can also consider there are different power centers, like in any organization. In university also there are power centers. For example, a VC office is one of the power center, let's say. So all those who are working or all those who are associated with the VC office, they somehow the or the other, it is believed that they have more power than others. Others? Those who are working in maybe relatively other offices, maybe in our department or maybe in registrar office or even in other departments. It is somehow believed that they may be having less power than the people who are working in VC office, because they have direct contact with the VC, and they might influence them regarding a file. So it is considered that way. For example, assistant registrar to VC, he shall be seen as a powerful person as compared to other assistant registrars in the registrar office. They are registrar in the in controller office and admission section. So the VC office also has assistant registrar, so he is considered to be little more powerful in the sense of referent power. So people tend to build relation with these people, so that they may say that I know him, right? So it is a kind of a referent power. Also, many a times, like I mentioned earlier, referent power is also related to charisma, the experience. And why do you think in any sport, in any field, some leaders, some players, let's say in sports, they leave mark on us? For example, we can say about Sachin Tendulkar. Why are Sachin Tendulkar, Dhoni, some cricketers, some players whom we are not able to forget their performance? Because of their expertise, their personal charisma, right? So these are different ways in which the referent power is interpreted, and we can understand it in the light of the charisma or the power they hold in any office. Different power could be understood. The sources of power can also be categorized in two categories. That on the basis of power which we just discussed, these bases of power could also be divided in two categories. One could be personal and one could be positional. The expert power and the referent power, these two bases of power could fall into personal category, because it is something which has to be developed.
Ma'am, expert and?
Referent power may fall in the personal category. The above these 5 sources of power, if we just discussed, they can be divided into 2 categories. Personal, first is personal. In personal could be expert and referent, because in expert and referent, one is it is based on the personal expertise, based on the personal characteristics of individual. The other category on which these sources of power could be categorized is a positional category. In positional, we can say reward is there, coercive power is there, legitimate power is there, because reward, coercive, and legitimate, these are on the basis of position a person is holding in any organization. So these 3 could be included in the positional category of the sources of power. Now, one question to you all. Which source of power is better? Personal or positional? What do you say?
So, ma'am, personal is better, I think.
Personal is better?
Ma'am, I
Why
think
do
a
you-
blend of both.
Yes, ma'am. Blend of both.
A blend of both.
Okay. Umar, why do you think personal power is better? Why not positional?
Ma'am, as you previous said, some players and some celebrities has powers. I think that are their personal powers,
Mm-hmm.
not their positional powers.
Mm-hmm.
Because Sachin Tendulkar is a player, and playing cricket is his personal power, not his positional power. He got position in Indian cricket team because of his personal power. So I think
Okay. Okay.
it is.
Ma'am,
Ma'am, we can
Anam, how do you think a blend of both will be good?
Ma'am, as he just mentioned now, Umar, that Sachin Tendulkar became what he became because of his talent, right? So, and then after that, he got his position. So there was a blend of personal and professional both. So that's why he got that position. That why he got legitimacy in his position.
ma'am,
Where personal power comes from the experience, that's why they are best.
Okay.
yes,
Okay.
ma'am. Adding to that, like Sachin Tendulkar wasn't a great captain, but people gravitated towards him, and that's why I would say that personal power is is better, because people gravitate towards your natural characteristics, your charisma, your expertise. And like I said, Sachin Tendulkar wasn't a great captain, but people still went to him for expertise, still went to him and looked up to him.
Okay.
So that's why I believe personal power is better.
Okay.
plus, ma'am, positions are uncertain. It can be snatched at any point of time. But what is personal or what is inherent in built in ourself cannot be snatched away from ourself only. So in that way, personal power can be better.
Okay. Very
Exactly.
good. Okay. Thank you for your inputs. We can also see this in with an example of educators, teachers. Some teachers some teachers say to students, they threat students that we will deduct your marks. For example, we will deduct your marks if you do not attend class, or we will deduct your marks if you will not have full attendance in the class, something like that. They deduct marks on the basis of a threat, and they try to make students perform on the basis of a threat. They threat students, and they use maybe this is somehow it is their way to deal with students. While some teachers, while some educators, they influence students in a subtle manner. They try to encourage students, they try to motivate students, they try to highlight the the positive part, how will it benefit if they attend classes? How will it help them to build their future, their bright future? So, so this is a way one may influence the worker. And it is important that we do not get ourselves attached to the position, because, like Riza just said, that positions change. And many a times, while some powers are conferred, other powers have to be earned, like expert power, like the expert power and the different power. The one angle of different power, it shows that it has to be earned. So, what should be our motive is that we should try to earn, we should try to acquire personal power as they stay with us, even when there is no positional power with us. Our expert power, our personal power shall stay with us. And the manager's success, it lies in strengthening positional power with his personal power. If a person is acquiring a position, if a person is enjoying a positional power, what is more important is he strengthens his position which he is enjoying with his personal power. Okay, he should always develop his personal power, so that when he does not have that position even in the organization, but he stays in the organization, his personal power would influence others, right? So that is how we can differentiate well between the positional power and personal power. We can also talk about authority. If I say something to you, if I ask you to do something, then definitely you would think that what gives me the right to tell me to tell you what to do, right? What, so the right which a manager has, or which an individual has, to take action, to give directions to others, that is authority. Authority is legitimate, but one is enjoying a position, one has a legitimate power, and that is authority, because the right to take action, the right to make decisions, and the right to direct others to work, or to direct the work to others, you can say. And now, authority is also derived from several sources. Authority is also derived from several sources, one of which is the person's position or rank, of course, the position or rank a person is holding, because of which he enjoys authority, and because of that he is able to take action and make decisions and direct the work to others. For example, we can say the president of a company or any head of a company, he has more authority based on the rank which he is enjoying. If the president of a company is compared with his senior vice presidents, so because of the hierarchy or the position that he's enjoying, because of that he has more authority over others. Many a times it is also said that if a person has authority, then there should be also a zone of acceptance. In other words, that the direction or the orders which are given, that also should be considered acceptable by the workers. A president of an organization might have considerable authority based on rank, but he may be unable to get anyone to follow his or her orders unless those orders are viewed as acceptable. If the subordinates, if the subordinates are not viewing those orders as acceptable, then he will not be able to influence them or to make them work or to make them follow his orders. So it is important that acceptance is taken care of, because acceptance is increasingly important today. It is also giving the it also gives emphasis on empowered workers and team-based organization. Unless there's acceptance of work, there's acceptance of the views, ideas, people will not be able to work in a team-based organizations. Thus, we have two contrasting views on authority. One could be said as a classical view, which says that all authority emanates from top to bottom. Those the authority which orders come from top to bottom. Whereas the other views is the acceptance view. The acceptance view says that the authority lies in the influencee, the person who is influencing. The authority lies in him. So his acceptance of authority depends on understanding of the orders. The orders should be understood by the people, should be, and the acceptance of authority lies in understanding of the organization goals. You should be understanding the organization goals, the personal values, you can say the personal priorities, also the communication capabilities, and also on the job capabilities which a person is performing. So these are two views on authority: classical view and acceptance view. So this was
Ma'am, can we say that classical view believes on the dominancy of the top people in authority? Can we say that?
Yes, we can say that, because in that way they are simply transferring orders from top to bottom, right?
It can be said that it is a more narrower concept, classical
Yes,
authority.
yes, definitely, because they are not able to influence others in a positive manner, and they are not worried if the other person is able to understand the order, acknowledge the order, understand the importance of performing those tasks in the light of organizational goals, and the personal values, priorities of the other person is maybe compromised. So definitely these are two opposite views, classical and acceptance view. Um, so I think, sir, if you can also add some inputs to this, will be very nice, sir.
Sure. Actually, we have covered all the points, so there is hardly anything to add. But this point I would like to emphasize, especially the two power bases which she crystallized in the end. Dr. Zareen crystallized, that is personal and positional power. And earlier she made a distinction between power and authority. So power maybe is a broader concept. Authority is related to the position that one is occupying. And earlier we used to have a position where, a situation where people who were having positions, they had a lot of personal power also. So in fact, we would say, for example, about the vice chancellor, so we would say about the country's head. When they would occupy the chair, they would adorn the chair. Okay? And that was because they were having such weight of their personality. So they didn't need position power actually. They would move masses. In fact, we have some of the best, some of the great leaders. For example, Mahatma Gandhi. He never actually had any position in Congress. He was only an ordinary member. But his voice always carried weight. So the best position, the best situation is when we have so much of personal power that we don't need positional power to get things done. Merely our word is good enough. So that's one thing. Now the second issue which Dr. Zareen is talking about is this acceptance view. Now what is this issue? Actually, one view naturally believes that all power emanates from the top. In fact, this view was extended to extremes during the period of monarchies. For example, I hope you have heard of a name of a sultan of Delhi during Sultanate period. His name was Balban.
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Yes, sir.
No, you know what was his title that he used to wish people call him by. He used to call himself Zillullah. Zillullah means shadow of God on the earth.
Yes, sir.
Now, so this notion of all authority emanating from the top was pushed to such extremes that people believed that they are God's vicegerent on earth, and naturally God's command has to be obeyed, and they are the vicegerent of God, so naturally their command has to be obeyed. So that was one extreme view of authority, and this continued for quite some time. But now the way society is evolving and all authority figures are under question and they can be questioned, this view is undergoing change. Like, for example, I may hold a lot of authority over you, I may hold a lot of power over you. But if I say, let us say, just for example's sake, that I feel like engaging this class at 2 a.m. in the morning, will this command be followed? So, all orders, all commands that are within the zone of acceptance, only they will be followed, isn't it? So actually, the power is not in me. The power is in the person who on whom it is exercised, because he decides to accept our command. So he would accept our command only when they are reasonable and they are within what this view calls the zone of acceptance of the person on whom this power is being exercised. Hmm. So now actually this view, in fact it indicates how culture has evolved, at starting with power cannot be questioned, authority cannot be questioned, but now it can be questioned. The entire system actually is based on the system of checks and balances. Our own Indian system is based, for example, on these checks and balances. No institution is powerful enough to hold the sway over people. And we are a strong democracy because, for example, the belief is that the political decisions can be questioned in the courts of law. So this is what is called the acceptance view. So power is not in me. The power is in the person on whom this is being exercised because he accepts the command. Now there was some discussion on the referent power also, and are you clear on that? What referent power means? And Zareen ma'am gave two interpretations of it. One, when you, because of charisma or whatever,
The charisma and experience, ma'am said.
charisma, experience, maybe expertise, some professionals acquire the status of a celebrity. Like, for example, now we have a cardiologist, Ashok Seth, who has the status of a celebrity. So people wish to refer to him. And these stars could be, these celebrities could be in all walks of life, sports, films, for example. And the second interpretation she discussed was that when you have a power to refer to somebody important, like Vice Chancellor in the AMU said. So all we have so many assistant registrars, but the one who is personal secretary to the Vice Chancellor is somehow seen as more powerful. So ultimately, you know what it boils down to? Having all the positional power, but getting things done through personal power. If the person needs a stick and a gun in his hand to get things done, then actually that's not lasting power. Although we have that famous quote, power flows from the barrel of the gun. So that was that mindset. Ultimately, the might is right. But as they say, pen is more powerful than the sword. So it is actually ideas. It is why parents wield power over us. It is because of the care and concern that they have. There is a couplet which puts it beautifully, "Wadaye dilbari ho," the manners, the beauty of the manners. "Wadaye dilbari ho, ki nawaye ashiqana," the concern of love that you have for others. "Wadaye dilbari ho, ki nawaye ashiqana," जो दिलों को फतह कर ले वही फातह ज़माना. The one who wins over the hearts of others, he is the real victor. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
So
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, sir.